Parker.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Wow. What an introduction.
Well, you deserve every single praise. So, as we all know, my True Crime Thursdays with Ebony K. Williams, as we are recapping the Diddy trial, I'm still doing that. But this one is a production that Courtney and I was trying to do for television 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Okay, 5 years ago. And it goes to show you God's timing is always perfect, and how sometimes, look, when you don't sell a show to the network, it doesn't mean the show was not a good idea.
That's
It's
exactly
all
right.
about the timing. So, Reality Crime Stories Raindrops is my new weekly series alongside Courtney Parker, where the both of us are going to be talking about crime, whether it's blue collar, white collar, shady crimes with reality stars. So, we're talking about Kim Kardashian Paris situation. We're talking about people who may have stolen some PPP loans to buy a Lamborghini. We're going to get to everything. But in today's episode, Courtney and I are going to break down the breaking news of Simon Guobadia, Porsha Williams' estranged husband,
Mhm.
who we just found out was detained, but also shipped off to Nigeria. But before we get to all of that, Courtney, I want to start from the beginning when it comes to what happened with Simon Guobadia. So, what we do know is this: on February 19th of this
Mhm.
year,
Mhm.
Simon was detained by ICE, which is the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, at his residence in Atlanta.
That's
And
correct.
that, according to federal sources, his arrest stemmed from long-standing immigration violations, including overstayed visas,
Mhm.
prior deportations,
Yeah.
and allegations of misrepresentation in the procurement of permanent residency in the United States. Courtney Parker, what is going on? Because this is, well, number one, it was shocking news for us to learn that Simon was detained in the first place. But give us the backstory in terms of what crimes was Simon allegedly, and we got to say allegedly because he hasn't been found guilty yet.
Mhm.
What crimes Simon allegedly was committing during his time in the United States?
Well, Simon has, you're absolutely right. The timing of this, we'll get into the timing of this because, the streets are talking and ICE is on full display, not just in the Simon case, but particularly just globally and in the United States. But some of the charges that he is facing are, INA Section 237, A1B, which is unlawful presence in the US after visa expiration. So he was here initially on a valid visa, but it expired. So that's the first charge. The second charge is INA Section 212, A6CI, which is fraud or misrepresentation for immigration benefits. So that's another big one. The third charge that we know of, allegedly, is INA Section 274A, which is knowingly hiring or being employed under false work authorization, meaning he knew his visa had expired. And he was here working on Real Housewives with an expired visa. So these are all just charges that are legitimate enough to deport him because he's been here illegally under an expired visa. That's the main charge. But what makes this case interesting with Simon is this is not his first offense. And that's what gets into the nitty gritty of it all. When you've flown under the radar for so long, and this is not your first offense, when you do stuff like reality TV and have these elaborate weddings and you're married to one of the biggest reality stars on a franchise that's massive, you've put yourself on the radar of the federal government. And so, as we're seeing with so many of these cases, once you're on their radar, you're on their radar. Now, what makes this so interesting, Carlos, and I'm so glad we're discussing it, is there have been so many rumors around the timing of his detaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to jump the gun here, but the $1 million question that makes this topic so topical is, who called ICE on him? He's in the midst of a divorce proceeding. So again, there's rumors that, is this a tactic from divorce attorneys? How did he get on the radar outside of just the global stage of the Housewives franchise? How did he get on the radar where it pertains to ICE actually picking him up before the hearing, before one of their first divorce hearings, and who called ICE?
Well, Porsha Williams has been accused of doing that. She did tell Charlemagne on the Breakfast Club that she did not call ICE. She has denied it. But I want to ask you this. We know that President Trump has doubled down on his mission to deport a lot of the illegal immigrants in the United States. And what we found out recently is that Simon has been deported back to Nigeria. So I want to ask you this. Porsha has been accused of calling ICE. She has since denied it. Simon is a public figure, and to your point, lavish wedding. He's on the biggest reality show on Bravo. This man tweets like he is Elon Musk, right? He will post on Instagram as if he owns stake into the social media corporation. Is it possible, Courtney, based on your esteemed research, that based on the very strict laws Trump has administered, in addition to Simon definitely wasn't hiding behind the gates, is it possible that his huge celebrity is what did him in? In addition to the fact that Trump is doubling down on deporting illegal immigrants.
I would say yes to all of those things, but I want to go back and give a little bit of a timeline of Simon particularly. Facts about Simon that most people won't know that also led to the detainment and deportation that he's experiencing now. Like, in his biggest infraction is overstaying his visas. He arrived, the first infraction allegedly happened in 1982, where Simon overstayed a visa, and in 1985, he was deported.
Wait, Courtney. In 1982, by the way, I was 3 years old, but in 1982, as I'm 3 years old watching Barney, Simon Guobadia obtained a visa. But in 1985, 3 years later, after obtaining this visa, he was deported.
He was declared deportable.
Deportable, got it. Yeah. Okay. What does that mean, Courtney?
It means you've overstayed. Like, if you have a 1-year visa or 2-year visa, if you extend it, you either have to really physically get an extension that someone approves. I don't know if it was a work visa, but in 1982, he got a visa. If it was a 1-year, 2-year visa, by 1985, it was not renewed, so he was classified deportable. He was declared deportable. He returned on a new visa. And sometimes, listen, sometimes it's an oversight. It's an oversight if you came in on a student visa and it took you longer to graduate. Sometimes it's not malicious. It's not a malicious intent. Your job, if you came in on a job visa and your job went better than expected, there are a multitude of reasons why visas are not either extended or you just didn't get around to. Once you're here, you're here. You're living the lifestyle of an American citizen. You're just not thinking about it. So we'll always give people the benefit of the doubt for a first strike offense on visas. It's complicated, right? And so according to research, in 1982 was his first American long-standing visa. I don't know if it was a year, it could have been 2 years, but by 1985, it had expired. Those are the facts that we do know. In 1986, which allows me to just think that it was just an oversight, because in 1986, he returned on a new visa. Normally, visas are not long-term. You get anywhere between 1 year to 3 years, sometimes even 5 years, but it's not an extended, because at some point you need to just declare and apply for citizenship or dual citizenship. There are a lot of numbering factors as to why you might be denied. But if you're going to be in the United States, then at some point, it's like us, if we go to a foreign country, if we're going to be living there and we're establishing residencies there and building businesses there, we either need to apply for a long-standing visa or we need to apply for dual citizenship. Like, you got to become an American citizen, pay real American taxes, and just establish yourself here. In 1986, he overstayed again. So he's become a serial offender. And that led to a plethora of legal entanglements with him. In 1987, again, just based off of my research, it was an extension. We had the 1985 offense. He came back in 1986, overstayed that visa. So now again, you're on the government's radar. In 1987, he was arrested and pled guilty to bank and credit card fraud, according to Reddit. And in 1992, he was deported. So again, we can't blame everything on the Real Housewives because he has a history. He's had an alleged history of dipping in and out of the US, doing allegedly God only knows what, and getting caught up while over here. So he was deported back in 1992, but he returned within a month under a different identity.
Well,
yes.
Wait.
And all of these things can be tracked. Like, if you just do your own Google search and research, you'll see a criminal history, an alleged criminal history of Simon and this deportation, over expired visas and celebrity status. So for me, I'm thinking, if you know your own history, why would you tread so carelessly in marrying one of the biggest, a popular reality star on one of the world's biggest franchises?
So
we
I
have
have
to
a
talk
question.
about that.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Courtney. So there's so much to process.
Mm-hmm.
The new identity that he created for himself in 1992 is the name Simon, not his real name.
I believe, let me find out what his name was, but
His
it
legal
doesn't
name.
necessarily tell you My research didn't unfold the name that he was granted permanent residency in, but it wasn't his real name of Simon.
Got it. Okay. So as you do that, so he was arrested for bank fraud. He pled guilty to this. So listen, when you plead, yeah. So I'm sorry, 1987, he pled guilty. When you plead guilty, there's no alleged. You pled guilty to bank and credit card fraud. And then in 92, you were deported. You returned within a month under a different identity.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to what happened recently, so from 1992 until 2025, which would make that 23 years from my math. So for 23 years, Simon allegedly was under a different identity with his visa up until recently, where he married, one of the biggest reality stars from the Housewives of Atlanta, and all of a sudden his world fell apart.
Yes. That is exactly what happened, which is why it's believable to many Porsha's side of things when she was saying, I didn't know who I married, when she alleges she didn't know who she married. It even goes back to Fallon allegedly knowing, and that is why that was part of the reason why their relationship was what it was.
Right, because Porsha's alleging that when she filed for divorce, all of this was news to her. Prior to Porsha filing for divorce, it was mysteriously leaked about Simon's checkered past.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people have alleged, Courtney, that his now ex-wife, Fallon, allegedly was the one who knew this information.
Yes.
And when Porsha announced her return to the Real Housewives of Atlanta, I want to say a week later, maybe two max, is when all of Simon's background and checkered past was revealed, which not only shocked us, but apparently shocked Porsha, who had said she had no idea.
Right. And I just did some quick research, and it would be true when it's a federal ICE situation. His identity, his previous identity that he got legal permission for permanent residency, and it's undisclosed. So they're not going to tell you the name, the fraudulent name and identity that he used. That information is not open to the public, but the government knows his aliases. Yeah, wow. So that information is not made available to the public. I just looked it up and asked what was the identity that got him permanent residency, but it didn't take the federal government long to identify the fraud in that and the misrepresentation and tying those two things together.
Got it. Okay. So, Courtney, we do have an expert that you brought on, because one thing about Courtney Parker, Raindrops, she knows everybody and everybody knows her, and she's a fact checker. So we do have an expert to sort of help us really break this down. And then, yes, we will get into the recent breaking news that Simon was deported back to Nigeria. So, Courtney, would you like to introduce our special guest today, and I'll bring him in?
Absolutely. Now, Steve Zissou is a international attorney who literally, I don't want to butcher his intro of who he is, but he is one of the attorneys that negotiated the swap for the Brittany Griner case. So with Russia, he negotiated, he was one of the lead negotiators and attorneys for the swap to get her back on US soil, but also he negotiated for the Russian prisoner that we had to return to Russia for Brittany. He is just an abundance of wealth, of knowledge, of international law. So we're going to use him in future episodes, but for the purposes of this, he knows the ins and outs of educating us. Because here's the thing, and here's why I love that you're creating this kind of platform. Yes, there is the tea and the drama of it all, but in it, it's also, there are things that we just as US citizens, especially in this kind of global cultural environment where we're seeing even our neighbors, some of our neighbors just get deported and picked up. Like we need to understand what those laws are, how we can protect ourselves, and what to do if we or someone we care about is impacted by this. The timing of this thing is perfect for Porsha, and we'll get into that as it pertains to her divorce, her pending divorce. But the practicality of it is so many of us travel with just such an ignorance that Steve will be able to enlighten us and educate us on.
Okay, good. Because there's a lot of conversations about deportation, what ICE is doing under Trump's administration, and to really just break down what maybe the future holds for Simon Guobadia. Mm-hmm. So, Raindrops, give a warm welcome to Steve.
Hey, happy to be here. I hope my office studio is working for you guys.
It's perfect.
It is.
Well, so bottom line is he's not coming back unless the Secretary of State gives him a waiver for the President of the United States.
Well, dang.
That's the bottom line. Look, he could apply for what's known as an I-212, but that's not getting granted. But as I said, Secretary of State has this statutory authority to let him back in, and certainly the President of the United States can make it all right. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already started those discussions. I certainly would have as soon as my client got to custody. That's the first place I call. Now, the White House rarely answers when you call, but sometimes they do, and sometimes the president gets involved, and sometimes it's a matter of crafting a narrative that the president will go for. But in my respectful opinion, he ain't getting back, assuming he wants to. I don't know that he does.
Okay, I have a few questions, Courtney. Courtney, I'm gonna have you run the show. I'm so fascinated.
Yeah, go for it.
So we know that under Trump's administration, Steve, that he is big on deporting illegal immigrants, and it's been something that he has politicized his first term in office, and he's tripling down on it during his second term. We are aware that Trump has recently pardoned a few celebrities, recently and notably the Chrisleys, Todd Chrisley and his wife for tax evasion, who were sentenced for that. We know he also pardoned Lil Wayne. So the celebrity aspect of it is something he does like. He was asked recently, Steve, if he would pardon Diddy. And he said, I have to look at the case. I don't know. I need to know more information. So to your point, Steve, you even said as being an attorney yourself, that perhaps Simon's legal team have put in the request to President Trump to look at the case, because that's something you would do to see if this is something he could help with, although he's standing on the policy of deporting all illegal immigrants.
Yeah, well, that's certainly true. And if it were any other president but Trump, you might interpret that to be a little inconsistent, but that's not how it works in the Trump White House. As you know, he's more transactional than any other president has ever been. And, look, the man has some resources. I'm talking about,
Simon.
I'm talking about Simon. And he's got business ventures, and he's got something he could put on the table that might some sort of a benefit that Trump could advertise as helping the United States economy, or maybe something that helps Trump enterprises. And he certainly seems to have enough assets. When I looked it up, he had some net worth of $50 million or something like that. That's certainly enough money there to put something on the table. And when you turn in the narrative that this was obviously a setup, I mean, I know you folks are fact checkers and you don't want to say things are out there, but look, matrimonials. I did matrimonial when I was a younger lawyer, first in private practice, and I dropped them right away because they are the most difficult cases to handle. The passion runs high, and more often than not, there's a lot of money involved. There's no question somebody dropped a dime on him. Now, whether that was part of a legal strategy or not,
right?
I have my doubts about that because, if you're a lawyer, you want the guy in a place where a judge can order him to do things, right? Now, in a foreign country, the judge loses a lot of that flexibility. And if I'm him, I'm transferring every asset I have into a bank account in a foreign country that nobody can access.
So let's talk about that. Go ahead. Yeah, let's talk about that because that's the T, right? That's the T to the reality of the crimes.
Correct. Yeah.
And Carlos, you and I discussed, and please get into this for us, Steve. The $1 million question is, obviously we know Porsha was not the one who picked up the phone and called ICE. But would it be a smart and practical practice of her team to make sure that he is deported or in the worst possible position to fight during these divorce proceedings?
Yeah, look, so if it's my case, I don't want him deported. I want him someplace where we can exercise control. The wonderful thing about matrimonials is I tell folks who come into me, again, I don't do them, but they're thinking of getting divorced. And the first thing I'll say to them is, in divorces, the only folks who make money are the lawyers, right? And so the way lawyers make money is there's such passion involved, is these things go on and on and on, and nobody wants to settle on a reasonable basis. If it's me, I want him here so we can work out a reasonable settlement to this case and everybody move on. So, there's something left of the marital estate. Once he's gone, what incentive does he have to bargain or negotiate unless there are assets in this country that are within reach of a court? I don't know of any. I've not seen any orders that a judge has issued that seal a bank account or freeze it, if you will. If that's the case, so long. That's
right,
it. Look, one of the things I do with every client who's involved in a crime or an offense, most of my work is criminal work. Most of the first question I ask for folks who are involved in these kind of offenses is, what have you done to protect your assets, right? That's the very first thing I do. It's not, look, you've got to, that's not to suggest I'm urging the client to commit some crime or cover something up. It's just a simple question. What have you done to protect your assets? Of course, they ask me, well, what should I do? I'm like, well, I can't advise you that. I'm just asking, what have you done to protect your assets? I'm sure he has done something to protect his assets. And if that's the case, what control do the lawyers have on it? I don't see that as a beneficial strategy going forward. In particular, if the judge finds out, the judge presiding over the matrimonial action, judge finds out that the lawyers had something to do with dropping a dime on him to get him kicked out. No judge is going to be happy about that, right? Because again, it creates issues for the judge too. Like, now, how do I order this guy to do anything? How do I get him into a courtroom? How do I exercise jurisdiction over his assets? These are complications that just will extend the litigation for years to come.
Got it.
So thank you, Courtney, for your $1 million question, because that was my question too. So Steve, based on what is happening now, Simon has been deported back to his homeland of Nigeria.
Yep.
He has a checkered past when it comes to being found guilty of identity fraud. bank fraud and things of that nature. Based on the history of his past, how was he even able to secure U.S. citizenship under a different name that he allegedly did in 1992? So in 1992, Steve, they're saying that he created a whole different identity, got another visa, and he has been here until he got arrested a few months ago.
Well, so, I have a client, or had a client some time ago, who took the oath of citizenship while he was in jail. Now, how do you figure that? I mean, that's what I call good lawyering, right? Well, the answer is he got somebody else to show up to swear the oath, and he became a citizen. And what happened to this fellow is, unfortunately, he continued to commit crimes, and eventually the U.S. government figured it out, and they started an action to revoke his citizenship. As you know, or as your audience may not know, there is no statute of limitation for cancellation of citizenship based on fraud. It can happen at any time. Those are laws enacted essentially and used against the Nazi war criminals and stuff who came over to the United States, and that's why every once in a while you wrote a 90-year-old, 100-year-old former Nazi is being deported back to Germany or Israel. And so, laws are on the books, and the government has to show clear and convincing evidence that the citizenship was obtained through fraud. And when they do that, you revert back to your original status. If you had a green card when you got sworn in, you revert back to whatever your status was. That's not to say the green card couldn't also be challenged, but you go down one step at a time. Green cards can be canceled, as we've all come to learn recently, by act of the Secretary of State or the President at any time. So it hasn't been used, and for the most part, the U.S. is a country of immigrants, and there just hasn't been a lot of focus on removing people whose offenses were relatively minor and nonviolent. There just hasn't been the desire to spend the resources for someone to kick somebody out who's otherwise productive, paying taxes and doing that kind of stuff, and providing an economic benefit to the folks in the United States. Now that has changed. And that elections have consequences, and if Trump wants to change the approach to immigration in this country, he can. He was elected, and he has every right as the commander-in-chief and the chief executive of the country to make that kind of policy change.
Whether we like it or not, right?
Whether you like it or not.
Whether we like it or feel it's fair or not.
Right. Your dislike can be shown at the ballot box, either in the next congressional election or in the next presidential election. That's where it showed. But other than that, there ain't shit we can do about it.
Right.
That's a Latin phrase, by the way.
Question for you, and I know you had this question as well. There's been a lot of talk in the comments and just word on the street about prenup enforcement.
Yeah.
And an incentive for Simon's deportation nulls and voids Porsha's alleged prenup. Can you speak to that? Because he has a history of fraud by way of status in the United States, by defrauding with identity and visa status. Does his immigration fraud, could that render their pre-existing prenup as invalid due to fraud?
So the uncomplicated answer is it may, but you ask a question like that, it brings me back to the time when during a different presidency, when the question about Richard Nixon was, what did the president know, and when did he know it? And that's going to be the case for any kind of agreement that the parties signed. It depends on what she knew, and even if she didn't know, were the misrepresentations of a material nature. You just don't tear up agreements. The breach has to be a material breach. It has to be something that would have changed the party's position, right? So what did he know and when did he know it? What did she know and when did she know it? If they both knew about each other's history, it's not going to mean anything.
Well, she's alleging, correct, Carlos? She's alleging she had no knowledge. So will her defense team have to, or will her attorneys have to prove she absolutely had no knowledge at the point of signing?
A hearing will be ordered. A judge will take testimony. She'll have to testify, assuming the judge can even get all the parties together to do that. But if the judge can, then she'll have to testify. She'll be subject to cross-examination. Simon will have to testify. Any other collateral evidence, communications, text messages, emails, phone records, all the ordinary things that corroborate or do not corroborate somebody's testimony will be available. Again, how could you not have known? You knew this, you knew that, but you claim you didn't do that. So, again, is it a factor if somebody tries to undo it? Sure. I mean, misrepresentations are always the primary consideration with prenuptial agreements, but in the end, it'll be what did she know? What did he know? And then, how strong is the prenuptial agreement to begin with? Prenuptial agreements have kind of a tacky history in matrimonial courts, where parties are always trying to get out from under them, right. And more often than not, one party or the other has more bargaining power, and so it's not simply did she know or did she not know? It's whether it would have changed her view going forward and whether or not she really, really didn't know. Look, and when you say don't know, the kind of thing that with a little due diligence you could know. Look, about to marry.
Right. I found out so much by just my deep dive research, and I definitely wasn't married to the man. So yeah, that makes sense. That's a good point.
Well, no, it's also fascinating because what I want to ask you too, Steve, is again, we're seeing what's happening right now in Los Angeles with the riots, right? And we see a lot of people are being deported back to, their homeland, I will say. If you are a person in the United States who's here on an expired visa, and to your point, Steve, like you said earlier, normally under any administration, if you're not doing anything criminal or things of that nature, you normally are okay. Unfortunately, what it appears is under Trump administration in this second term, it doesn't matter. So if you are on an expired visa, what advice would you give those people in terms of not getting deported?
Well, first of all, there's virtually nothing you can do to avoid a deportation if you've overstayed your visa during an administration such as this. You are subject to removal. Remember, entering and remaining in the United States, if you're not a citizen, is a privilege. It's not a right. So you might be able to delay it for a while, but you're not going to be there. There's no legal way to make it permanent. You can't change a non-legal status into a legal one simply because you don't want to get deported or removed, as the saying is. So there really is no way to do it. You're just delaying it. Most of these folks who stay in jail are just temporarily delaying it. Most of the legal actions that are being filed, the ACLU is doing a fabulous job advancing some of these cases, but they're placeholders. They're long term, you're going to lose. Simple as that.
Right.
You got the ACLU fighting for you. Maybe they get you out on bail. Maybe you live to fight another day. But for the most part, no, if during this administration, there isn't going to be any any realistic way of staying here. And so what I've been advising people is, look, I know you got a life here, and you got family here, I know you have a job here, you got a business here, you're paying your time. I know all that. I will only say two things. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. You better be preparing to change your lifestyle. Don't just sit around and wait until they show up at your door, or show up at your place of worship or your place of employment, kick in your door and drag you out kicking and screaming. Don't wait. Get ready. It's like what I said earlier. What have you done to protect your assets? What have you done to prepare for what is inevitable during this administration?
And this is a quick question, piggybacking off of asset control. Because one of the big things that I've been reading and researching is when he filed a lawsuit to prevent Porsha from filming in their permanent residence, that created a spiral of events that negatively impacted and sped up the process of his detainment as well as his deportation. In speaking about asset control, as his productivity is halted, is it possible that Porsha can maintain sole possession now of the house and the media rights, ensuring financial control for her?
Oh yeah, I mean, look, that's going to require court order, and I don't. More often than not, judges, allow whatever party who is in possession of the property or the real property, however they got to it, to remain there until a final order of dissolution, and maybe even longer. Maybe it's part of the distribution of assets. Maybe as part of the decision, there's a court-ordered sale of the property, and then the proceeds go into the marital estate, so it could be divided up fairly. So yeah, I think that's likely to be the case. Sure, but again, in matrimonials, more often than not, the judges try to maintain the status quo, keep everybody in the position that they're in, and until there's a final rational settlement. That could, as I said earlier, that can often take centuries.
Is it going to be more challenging now that he has, within the last week, been deported?
Yeah, well, of course, absolutely. I think, as I said earlier, the idea that he's not here, that the judge can't, essentially say, hey, you better do this, or I'm going to hold you in contempt.
Right.
And violating the contempt citations, I'm going to send you to jail for civil contempt. The power of a matrimonial judge over a recalcitrant party, and again, you have the power over both parties, but it's more often used in the person who's either hiding assets, not complying with court orders, not providing support, so on and so forth. And that power is gone. For a lawyer to be able to say to the client, listen, you better keep doing this, or you better stop doing this, or you're going to end up in the county jail. Now, what authority does the judge have? Virtually none.
Wow.
And just to wrap things up, Steve, first of all, thank you so much for taking time out to speak to Courtney and I about this. But as we wrap things up, I want to give the arrest timeline, because I want to know from your expert opinion, what is the fate from your, again, expert opinion of Simon. So again, just to recap the arrest timeline, February 19th of this year, he was detained by ICE at Stewart Detention Center in Georgia due to immigration issues. February 21st to 22nd, Twitter, all the media outlets spoke about this amid President Trump's mass deportation wave. February 25th, Simon files emergency continuance to delay their divorce hearing. On the 26th, the court did grant continuance, hearing postponed. April 30th/May 1st, another divorce hearing proceeds without him. Judge orders a June 11th hearing and ICE to produce him if ordered. May 16th, confirmed that Simon remains in ICE custody ahead of the hearing. And as of recent, he's still detained. He's been deported to Nigeria. Is Simon ever going to come back to the United States, number one? And number two, Steve, if he's found guilty, what are some of the sentencing that he faces?
Well, when you say when he's found guilty, to my knowledge, he hasn't been charged with a crime. He could be.
Okay.
There were allegations included in the ICE detainer, but once they decided to remove him without starting the criminal process, that pretty much put an end to it. Technically speaking, I guess if he snuck back into the country and entered again, and they caught him, they can charge him with, unlawful reentry and any other.
Well, and not to interrupt, but that's what he was arrested for. When he was detained in February, he was arrested for unlawful presence in the U.S. after visa expiration, fraud and misrepresentation for immigration benefit, and knowingly hiring or being employed under false work authorizations.
Right, but those were not criminal charges filed at the U.S. District Court, as I understand it. Right, those were the allegations that the INS used, or the Secretary of State used, to justify his removal from the United States, and then they shipped him out. So they've essentially waived or abandoned any criminal charge. Again, the criminal charge theoretically continued to exist while the statute of limitation is still running. Some of those allegations, probably the statute of limitation has already run on a criminal charge. For ordinary federal crimes, the statute of limitations is 5 years, right? So some of those have come to an end. But as a basis to cancel somebody's status in the country, there is no statute of limitation. So as far as my argument would be, the government waived any kind of criminal prosecution.
Got it.
And in your opinion,
I beg your pardon. That also goes to, I was reading somewhere about, forfeiture of assets or stuff such as that, about, maybe some sort of forfeiture could be involved. Well, forfeiture is something that the government is statutorily authorized to do, but only if you're convicted of an offense. Convicted, that is, convicted.
Oh, got it.
Convicted of a crime. Convicted of a crime for which forfeiture is authorized. The government can't just start a forfeiture proceeding. You have to be convicted of a crime that authorizes forfeiture. Without that, the government can simply steal your assets. They might file a lawsuit if they're alleging some civil fraud, I suppose, but that does seem rather far-fetched. Look, bottom line, he's not here now. He has every right to be present for his matrimonial case. How the judge is going to handle that? He's going to call the White House, call the Secretary of State. Hey, would you let him back in temporarily so I can finish my case? Fat chance of that happening. Look, he even filed, I came across it earlier today, he filed a federal lawsuit against her, alleging that on the show, that he had caused him emotional harm, because on one of the shows, she alleged that he was suffering from erectile dysfunction. That's a federal case pending in the United States District Court that he filed. It's pending. A complaint's been filed. An answer has been filed. And the judge has given the parties until, I think, the end of the year to amend the complaint or comply with any other statutory process. So read the complaint. It's really hysterical. I mean, that's it. Caused them intentional infliction of motive by alleging ED.
And yeah, that was something that she tweeted on her social media, which is, listen, it's the reality show, not only on the show, but also in the world of social media. Steve, Courtney, and I thank you so much for stepping into reality crime stories for our first episode to really detail with your expert point of view on this particular case, and we would love to invite you back for a future episode.
Well, I'm ready for anything at any time. It's been a pleasure to be here with you folks, and good luck on the show. It sounds like you got a great idea.
Thank you so much, Steve. I appreciate you.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye. So, Courtney, I mean, what a dynamic
First episode.
To say the least. Do you know what I mean? Like, diving into the Guobadia of it all. Listen, I had no idea that, and again, but this is why I love doing this true crime, because I'm not an attorney. There's only so much information I can retain with all the stuff I have going on. Same with you. It just, when Steve said, like, he didn't do anything criminal
Criminal,
to
right?
be found guilty of anything, and how that was kind of waived with the fact that he was detained with ICE and he's being deported.
And
that in
that's
itself is
the
the
bottom
important.
line. Like they had grounds to detain him, and the sole goal is to get him out, not to prosecute him, not to find him liable for criminal activities. So all of those charges that led to his arrest become almost null and void once they do the very thing that they sought out to do, which is deport him. He's gone. And according to Steve, it's likely not going to be able to come back unless he's granted a
pardon
or something.
or
but he hasn't been.
Yeah.
He's not been committed a crime unless he's granted access back into the United States by the president, who himself is a Reali-Tea alum. So you never know.
If Trump gives Cyber Guobadia some sort of clearance, Lord Jesus, there's nothing that this world will surprise me anymore. But hey, crazy things have happened, Courtney Parker. But
this was so much fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, listen, what a great first episode. Courtney Parker, thank you so much. We'll do this again on our second episode. But in the meantime, please let the raindrops know where they can find you, follow you, and support all the many things you have going on.
Oh, listen, we have so many wonderful shows in the works. Carlos and I, given this reality crime story, we have something in the works as well. Look for it. Coming this fall. But more importantly, I'm on Instagram as CP Star Writer, CP STAR Writer, WRITER. That's my handle for all platforms: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. And all of my true crime media library. You can still catch several of my episodes on Law and Order on demand. And season 4 of Celebrity Crime Files still airs on TV One.
Yeah.
Much more to come.
Much more to come. Congratulations, Courtney, on this endeavor. I'm so happy to partner with you on this, and Raindrops, many more to come. So make sure to subscribe, like this podcast, share it with people. True crime stories weekly, where we're going to dive into any sort of crime that are done by Reali-Tea stars. So we will see you guys on the next one.
Bye.